Hey, John, how are you?
I'm very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks, man. Well, I'm so pumped to have you here. I mentioned this before we hit record, but I've been on your newsletter now for 1, 2, 3 years. I don't know how long, and I've been a big fan. So really excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Well, I really appreciate the invitation, man.
Of course. Would you mind kind of starting with your background and kind of the story of how this all started? I think people are going to get a kick out of it.
Yeah, sure. So I used to work for digital marketing agencies in London. That was my profession. I moved down to London in 2006. Worked for digital marketing agencies. Sort of quit my way to the top. Stayed at one place for a year or so, and then moved to another. And then after about 5 years, I decided, I think I can do this better myself. And I started an agency with my brother. Put my notice in. Started an agency. And it all went really well. But then about a year in, all of my word of mouth leads dried up. And I realized, it's pretty important to be able to generate leads. It's all, I know how to close deals, but I didn't know how to open. And I just lost a few clients at the time. And I was a bit desperate. I had staff to pay. And that's when one night I dealt with that the only way I knew how. I got blind drunk and for some reason decided to write the most absurd cold email I could possibly come up with. And then in the morning was still tipsy enough to think sending this to some of the most senior decision makers at some of the world's largest brands and corporations was a good idea. And to my amazement, it worked. I got loads of positive responses and saying things like, I never replied to a cold email in my life, but I had to reply to this one. This is the best cold email I've ever seen. And my personal favorite was just kind of succinct, which just said, my colleague forwarded me your spam email and we would like to meet you to discuss opportunities. Which I just thought was really funny. And to my amazement, every time I sent this email, it worked really well. I then started sending a direct mail letter with the same copy and then following up on email. I didn't know that sending an email sequence was what you were meant to do. That was my way of getting response rates up, and that worked really well. And then I realized that I could use the same style of writing, this sort of charming way of writing, to get more people to say yes to my reasonable requests more often, no matter what they might be. So that was if I needed to get my clients covered in a publication, I could use the same style. If I wanted to get people to events pre-COVID, you could, although you could do the same with virtual events now. Getting my friends as many job interviews as they want, I realized that I'd got something here. And I started Charm Offensive in March 2017. I just got some momentum. I'd got myself out of some unfortunate personal circumstances. And with the momentum of that, decided to start the Charm Offensive Facebook group, started my email list a month later, and it took off. Now I used to collect screenshots of showing all my responses to cold emails. Now I collect customer testimonials where all of that. I get to enjoy the warm buzz of seeing those responses, but I don't have to do any of the work. So I'm kind of in the best position possible. And now it's my entire business. Charm Offensive, I've got loads of products that I sell on email, and I've got my professional subscription. And yeah, I can't believe I get to do this for a living. And yeah, it's amazing.
That's so cool, man. No, I love that. And I think I must have found you probably from the press that you got around that crazy cold email that you sent. I think I probably was doing research on cold email back in the time and came across you. So kind of you briefly touched on what does today look like? Is it an agency? Do you mainly sell info products and coaching? You have the Facebook group. Like, what does today look like for you?
I've been able to put myself in a really great position. Like, it's pure info products and subscriptions. I don't do any client work anymore. I haven't since 2018. I've had to make the decision to get rid of my clients because I wanted to work on this. And I don't really do any like high ticket coaching or anything. My diary is empty other than the things that I want to do, like this podcast, like this interview, for your newsletter. So it's all information products and the subscription. And now my goal is really, I'm always making new products, is scaling using Facebook ads, just growing my audience and telling more and more people about this way of writing that can open up opportunities for them.
That. So can we talk real quickly about like the transition from, going from, you had a job, then you went out on your own with your brother, you built this agency, and now you're kind of doing this. Like, what was the evolution of, like, you had the agency, like, how did you wind it down? How did you decide that you wanted to sell info products? What did that look like?
Well, there was a number of different things. One of them was that we just had the 3 calls of death. We had sort of like 3 of our biggest clients leave. And also I was losing enthusiasm at the time for the kind of work, and I actually wanted to try and become a writer. And then it was because of some unfortunate personal circumstances, I decided to leave the business, and then decided when I'd got myself out of these circumstances, I decided, you know what, I I should tell more people about that email that I sent, because I sent that and it worked so well for me, and for getting clients, for getting my friends' job interviews, for getting PR coverage, for anything, getting beta access to software that I liked, or ad platforms. And that's when I started the group. And I had some freelance clients because, I had to pay the bills. But within 3 months of starting the Facebook group and the email list, I'd started selling products. And I was like, I want to do this for a living. Like, I'd love not to have to do anything to do with clients ever again, which is funny because I'm selling a product that helps people get clients. But I just decided, when I saw that Colin of the Cult of Copy, he's got a Facebook group called the Cult of Copy. His name's Colin Therio. I hope I'm pronouncing his surname right. I saw what he'd got, and I was like, I'd love to have a business like that. And I love the atmosphere of his Facebook group. He created something interesting, and I did a paid call with him. And I've never paid for someone's time before like that, for $250 for a call. But it was a great call, and he told me, you've got something interesting here. Clearly it works, and you're enthusiastic enough about it that you can make it work. And then I tried it, and as soon as I started making money, I was like, I want to do this for a living. I want to do this full time. And I had to get rid of some decent retainer freelancer clients to put the time in, but I'm really glad I did. I love this business model. It's awesome. It's just so much less stress. I don't have to deal with anyone. It's great.
Yeah, man, you're living the dream, right? This is the ultimate version of success, being able to do what you want and something you're so passionate about. And it's really clear. So that's awesome. I'd love to talk about your newsletter. It feels like is it a daily newsletter 7 days a week, or is it 5 days a week? How far ahead do you plan it? Like, how much work is involved with each email you write? Can you walk me through some of that?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing this a while now. So and because when I first started, I had to keep making new stuff so I could sell it, so I could afford to do it as a job. So I've created loads and loads of different products. And sorry, I need to refer to your question again. I've gone blank.
No worries. I'm excited to hear the answer. But so like your newsletter, is it 5 days a week? Is it 7 days?
So it's pretty much every day, but sometimes, like, after I've done a launch of a product or a sale of a product, and I've sent a few emails in one day, I'll usually have a day off. But pretty much it's every day. For the writing of campaigns, for like if I come up with a new pack, it's all in a real quick time period. I've gotten very good at coming up with an idea, getting a draft sales page together, getting it up, writing the emails, and getting them scheduled. Obviously, I've got lots of stuff, as I've done previous campaigns. We can reuse emails that say we've done a launch. We can reuse some of those launch emails, edit them a bit, and decide to schedule them in whenever we want. So there's a lot of different offers that are rotating, just because we know that they work and they're good. But if there is a new product, yeah, it's a pretty quick turnaround, and I try and write as in the moment as I can when I'm coming up with new stuff, and I'm excited about it. But yeah, it's usually every day, but sometimes there's a day off to give people a break.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about in terms of tools that you use? Like, what email platform do you use? Do you use anything else for editing, copy, anything for design? I know all your emails are plain text, but do you use any other tools outside of like your ESP for helping?
ConvertKit is the email platform that we use. It does pretty much everything that I want. There's some automation features there that I'm tempted to go to someone else for. I use Deadline Funnel for evergreen and fixed deadlines, so it automatically redirects people when the deadline's expired. What other software? For the Facebook group, Grillytics for looking at which posts have been successful and which haven't. For Facebook ads, AdEspresso. I don't know if this is that's some of the tools that I use.
That's fantastic. People love tools, so that's awesome. One more question about the email list, and then I want to talk about the Facebook group. When you send an email, can you predict to some degree of like, hey, this email is going to get this open rate and this click-through and this conversion? Like, has it gotten down to more of like a science where it's kind of mathematical?
You do build up like a heuristics of like, what certain things work. Like anytime you launch something new and you put new in the subject line, your open rates and clicks are just going to be way more. So there are certain things that definitely work. But then there are times where I'll do split tests, and I'll split test something really boring with something really that I think is really interesting and fun, and the really boring one will work. So it's not an exact, I haven't got I'm not perfect at it, but you can kind of tell, when you come up with something good, this is going to do well. Not always, but you do gain an ability for it over time, especially when you're always testing mad different stuff all the time. Because I've got the full creative control as well. That's the really cool thing. I don't have to put anything past anyone or anything. I get to market things exactly how I want, write whatever I want, design whatever I want. So it is really cool, and you get to test a lot of stuff. But yeah, I've gotten pretty good at it, but nobody's perfect. We can always get better.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I do want to talk about Facebook groups in one sec. One last question I have. I'm not asking for specific numbers. I'm more asking, like, with the revenue that you drive, like, is there seasonality? Is there trends? Is it pretty consistent month over month? Does it depend on what you're launching? Like, I think a lot of people that are doing info products, and, you know, whether they're starting their own thing, probably are wondering, like, hey, if I'm doing something that doesn't have recurring revenue, like, how do I make it certain months? Like, what does that look like? And again, not asking for numbers.
No. It's well, actually, because I decided to launch the subscription, the recurring subscription, because I built so many products, made so many products, because I had to keep making new stuff, because new stuff always sells the best. Obviously, when you've made something, you can sell it again, but you've got to have new people on your list, people that haven't bought. So for me, it was kind of worried. That's what made me create the subscription. Is I was worried that, you know, if you have a few bad sales, it's really, really worrying. So that's why I created the subscription. I would say it's pretty, because I've got the subscription, it's pretty level. The only increase, you'll see increases when I put more effort in. Like if I go and find some joint ventures, you know, and try and do some deals and they get booked in, that month's going to be bigger. If I put more effort into creating more new products, like if I have a month where I decide to create 2 or 3 new products, that month is always going to be bigger. So it really is down to my effort, my level of effort. And because I've had so many different products that different offers that I can schedule in, sometimes I can coast a little bit if I want a bit of time off. That's another little cool thing you can do. You can just schedule stuff in. But really the difference between month to month, there's not massive seasonality, I wouldn't say. I'd have to look at the data, but there's not like any gigantic peaks. It's really around how much effort I put in. The more effort I put in, the better that month will be. I wish I could be super gung-ho all the time, because I'd be rich, but I'm trying my best not to burn out while still scaling.
Yeah, and again, it seems like you've created the ultimate like lifestyle business, right? So, you know, it's level, it's even keel, it's cool. So that's awesome. Can we talk about your Facebook groups? Is it a single group? Is there multiple groups? Is the group open to anyone like that's listening? Could they join? Is it a paid group? How does that work?
It's the Charm Offensive group is there's a free one. That's the main one. I think there's 13,000 or 14,000 people in there, and there's loads of like funny ad copy, PR campaigns, anything that's kind of that can help either inspire people, because it's an example of something that's funny and you can see what's good and what's not by how much engagement it gets. And also there's a whole archive of all the stuff I used to post about cold email and LinkedIn. There's so much content. If you go into the tags, you can go through there. There's loads and loads of different stuff that people can go through, loads of useful stuff. But anyone can join that group. There is a paid group that if you join Charm Offensive Professional, there is a paid Facebook group. But the main one is the free one that anyone can join, and I recommend that they do.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll definitely include the link to it in the notes. With a Facebook group, how much of the Facebook group is you pushing people to join versus Facebook kind of organically showing people your group to others?
When I first started, I put loads of effort into going on podcasts, and I did get some PR coverage, and I was directing loads of people to the Facebook group to get it going. But once I've got a few thousand members, you do become a recommended group, and you do get a certain level of new people that just join because if they're in a cold email group or an advertising group or a marketing group or a copywriting group, they'll often see Charm Offensive come up. The screenshot that comes up, the cover art that comes up in the little icon, even shows one of my responses, so that naturally intrigues them, and I get new members that way. I do get new members just by virtue of growing my email list, like through Facebook ads or through posting stuff on LinkedIn or through PR or whatever. But for the most part, yeah, I do have a lot of success just because Facebook recommends me. I do link to the Facebook group on my main website, so I do get some growth that way. But these days, I am focusing more on my email list than the Facebook group. It just converts better, and I don't like spending loads of time on Facebook, other than the ads, which are just incredibly powerful. I'm trying to spend less time on social as I can, because it can drive me a bit mad. So I'm much more focused on the email list now, I would say.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially being an email guy, right? So that makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of congruency. One more question I have for you before I would love to talk about kind of getting your advice and tips on, cold emails, emails for clients, et cetera. But the last kind of question I have for you before we get to that is how much does a personal brand play into what you do? Like, how much of it is people buying your content because you're Jon, the email guy, versus just people like your content and it's good irrespective? Like, how much of a personal brand plays into what you do in the info product space?
I think, it seems like, I know, I thought it frozen then, but it hadn't. For me, it helped me because I was able to get on podcasts and I was able to get coverage that I wouldn't have if I didn't have an interesting story. I am lucky that I've got that story. I'm really glad that I was desperate at that time and that whole thing happened. Because it really helped, I generated all those meetings. It was really exciting and nice. But down the line, it's obviously been really, really useful to me. So I think it helped me that way, because the drunk cold email that changed my life, I've just used that as a subject line to get on many podcasts. I mean, it's just inherently interesting. So I would say it's definitely helped. But I think if you're knowledgeable and also you're enthusiastic, those are some of the main things. If you can make it interesting, like cold email is not a particularly sexy topic, but adding humor to it has made it fun and interesting. So if you can take something and make it fun and interesting, that's a huge part of it. I've probably done well because when I go on podcasts and I've got a lot of experience in dealing with people, like in the agency days and doing pitches and all that kind of stuff. So all that kind of stuff probably helped. So I think it's a combination of things. You've got to know your stuff, but being interesting, it definitely helps. I've got an interesting story. It's definitely helped me.
Yeah, no, I know I was excited to talk to you about that. All right, well, I'd like to end with like one or two things that are like really kind of actionable or tactical. And I'll let you decide whatever those might be, like, a subject line or two that's working, how you think about writing a cold email, like whatever you want to throw out there, like just one or two things that are actionable.
I'll try and give some things that are transferable if I can. I think the first one is when you are more like the big thing about my email, it was more honest than anyone would expect. It didn't have that veneer of I'm a serious business person and I'm really good at this. And it was just so honest. The first line admitted I got their details from a list, I bought their data. It was just so refreshingly honest that really takes people back. And I think you can do that in any kind of marketing. Like you'll see it with, when you see really honest ads, it really takes you back and it gets your attention. So even if you can't be funny, if in your copy, if you can just be more honest than is expected, something that catches people off guard. And also being super honest can be funny sometimes, especially depending on the situation. So that's the first thing I would suggest, is trying to remove as much as possible. It's not possible for everyone, any kind of stuffiness or pompousness, and level with people and speak like a human. That's number one. Number two is to, I would say, I can give a little bit of a trick from the email, from the original drunk cold email. So there's a thing called the trick. So the reason that I wrote that email, I realized that I used to stay up watching stand-up comedy when I was a youngster, from the age of like 8 or so till like 16, till the early hours, watching it in sitcoms. And so and then for a brief period, I tried some open mic comedy. So I was learning about joke writing for like a year or a year and a half. So as well as watching it for all those hours, my 10,000 hours experience. So I knew all of these joke formulas, and one of them is called the simple one. A simple one is called the comic triple. So the power of three, for some reason, anything in threes is really powerful. A comic triple is where the third variable is unusual or weird or out of place compared to the other two. So in my email, there's a line where I go, if you agree to meet with me to talk about your digital marketing campaigns, I will take you for coffee or lunch or tequila shots and promise to be somewhat entertaining. If you're lucky, I may even wear a top hat. So the structure of that first bit, I'll take you for coffee or lunch or tequila shots. It's that third variable that's unusual. So it's not like stand-up comedian funny, but it's in the context of a business email. Who says that? Like if you get that in a cold business email, that's like so unusual and obviously silly. Although 2 people did take me up on the offer. I had tequila with them. The key there is that sometimes I'd get invited to pitches even though I was the wildcard option. So they'd got 7 serious agencies or something, and then they had the wildcard option, the silly ferret guy. But then I would go and blow them away with how good we were, and how much we knew, and my enthusiasm. So even if you're invited in as the wildcard, you can take advantage of that. So I'd say, went on a bit of a ramble there. The comic triple was the piece that I was meant to tell you about. So another example of that is you can get a hold of me by phone, email, or by deploying carrier pigeons or something. There's a real simple joke formula there: serious, and then the third one is the silly element. So there's a little trick you can add to add a little bit of humor to your emails and add copy and whatever else it might be. It's called the comic triple. You can Google it if you wish to look in more detail.
Jon, man, that was a fire way to end this. I really appreciate your time. For people that are still listening, and I'll include all these links that you mentioned in the notes and in the email. How can people find you? Is it the Facebook group? Is it your email list? Is it Twitter?
Yeah, go to charm-offensive.co.uk. You can put a link in the description, I'm sure, in the email. And also, if you search for Jon Buchan, you can find me on LinkedIn. My profile picture is me rescuing a baby in a basket of burning kittens from a burning building. You can also join the Facebook group Charm Offensive. There's about 14,000 people in there. But I do advise you to go to charm-offensive.co.uk and sign up to my email list. Get the free mini course or the free drunk cold email template, and then you can hear more from me.
Sweet, Jon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Of course. Cheers.